All right, welcome back, Truth Seeker. So yesterday was Tuesday, October 11th, 2022. There was a gentleman helping us get something done at the new house, and I was blown away by how honest he was. He works on a commission, but he was just super honest, and literally one of the most honest people connected to any company I've ever dealt with. And what's funny is I thought his name was Jesse, but then I noticed his name badge didn't say Jesse, even though that's the name he was going by. And I said, "Your name's Jesus," and he goes, "Oh wow, you know how to say it right." And I said, well, "What, do people call you Jesus all the time?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "That's why I go by Jesse, because I don't like people calling me Jesus." And he was raised Catholic, and he was talking about how he's thinking about putting his child in Catholic school, even though he really didn't like Catholic school as a child. He said he preferred public school. His child's in public school. But again, talking to this guy whose birth name is Jesus, he said what's really bothering him about his child's school this year is he said there's already been 3 assemblies since the year started. I mean, it's October 12th. The school year just started about 1 month ago. A little more than a month ago out in this area. They might be a month and a half into their school year. I want to say it started somewhere in mid to late August. But so a little more than a month into the school year, and 3 assemblies on one subject this year. One subject. And before I tell you what it is, just think in your mind, what might they have already have had 3 assemblies about? And understand it, young kids, this is elementary school, so it's probably either kindergarten through 5th or 6th, because that's usually the way it is. It's either kindergarten through 5th or kindergarten through 6th, depending on if they're on the middle school or junior high system. But they just had their 3rd assembly on the topic of, starts with a T, then goes to the R, and the A, and the N, and the S. If you still need more clues, you need to go back to kindergarten. Transgenderism. And here's what the 3 assemblies have been. If you think that's not right, here's what the 3 assemblies have been. So the first assembly was because one student during the start of the school year said that they now identify as, the opposite gender, and they now have a new name they'd like to be called by. So the school had an assembly. Everybody met in the gymnasium. And, you remember school assemblies? If you went to a big public school, just when everybody gets in the big room together and they talk about something. They did this for us when I was in high school after the Columbine shooting in '99. That's back when I was in high school. I just found a scrapbook from pictures back then, and I couldn't believe how much older I looked than back then. I mean, I know I'm obviously a lot older. It's just so weird. It's just like, man, I can't even believe I ever looked like that much of a baby. But, anyway, they came into the assembly room. And again, everybody heard the story of how this person now identifies as this person and call them this. So that's the first assembly. So a few weeks later, that same child now they don't identify as transgender anymore. They want to go back to their old identity, the original gender, and the original name. So they have another school assembly. This is the second assembly, the assembly of the students for this one student, right? Just who cares about what all the rest of you are doing? You're all going to hear about what's going on in this student's life. This is the most important student here. But again, the second assembly was to address that, okay, they're no longer this, and they're now back to this. And that is perfectly okay. And this is the new normal. So guess what the third assembly is about, you guys? I bet you can figure out already. I bet there'll be no spoilers at all for what the third assembly is about. What do you think the third assembly was about? About a week later, the third assembly, here comes the third assembly. The third assembly is that they are now transgender again. So, I mean, think about it, you guys. 3 gatherings of the students to interrupt I mean, here, again, I'll encourage everybody to fly out to Seattle where big tech is and look at how many of the students or the people on that campus are Americans. You'll get a pretty good idea real quick how few are Americans. And the reason why is, I mean, it's getting worse and worse as time goes on, but this is what they were, I mean, it was almost as bad as what they were doing to us back then. Yes, you guys, we're all going to come in the classroom and learn about the great Christopher Columbus. You know, don't worry about the other people who were here before him. They don't count as discoverers. They were the wrong whatever, religion, skin tone, whatever, all the wrong qualities from the control. You guys know what I'm saying. But anyway, the controllers of this world who gave us names like Jesus. So coming back to the fact that yesterday the man telling me this, his name is Jesus, spelled the same way as Jesus. Of course, that's the Spanish pronunciation. And hold on here. Just making sure I don't run into the semi that's extra long. Oh, shoot. Okay. So Jesus was telling the story. Oh, yeah, this is the thing that's weird. So he didn't want to go by his name Jesus, right? Because people just always call him Jesus, and that rubs him the wrong way when people call him Jesus. So he goes by Jesse. And then it just reminded me that, you know, Jesus wasn't always the name of Jesus, not even in English. You know, after they updated the language, it went from Jesus to Jesus, and before that it was Yeshua. What I learned long ago is that the truest English form of the name is Yeshua. And again, that's debatable too. I couldn't say that that's true or not, right? I couldn't say that that's true or not. But it is interesting. And what's weird is the name Yeshua has a gematria of 83, right? It has a gematria of 83. And I meet this guy named Jesus yesterday on my 83rd day of my age. Of course, I'm born in 83 as well. I've always used that number like in my email address because of my birth year. I didn't realize what it was before so often, sadly. Again, all numbers are dualistic. But again, we know how that number is used tragically again and again in rituals. If you guys are new here, the song Murder by Numbers came out in 83. It's about killings as simple as ABC, 1, 2, 3. Murder equals 83. But so does the name Yeshua. And in a way, his story is kind of like a capital punishment, murder by state, put to death for violating man's law. And but yeah, I found it interesting that I meet a guy whose name is spelled exactly like Jesus, who wants to go by a different name. And I've always wondered, like, are we supposed to be? Ever since I learned, I never really questioned if the name Jesus could be a bad name. Before learning Gematria, but the reason I started to wonder, like, if maybe they've put something on that name that corrupts it, that like corrupts the energy of the name. And again, this doesn't mean that it's true, but here's the reason it could be. Again, I started to question this when I learned about Gematria, this ancient biblical practice, going back to Babylon, practice of coding numbers into words. Again, it's an ancient practice. It's in English, which shouldn't come as a surprise because there's a lot of things in this world that we weren't told. But if you just make A into 1, B into 2, C into 3, D into 4, up to Z, the 26th letter, into 26, if you write out English and add up the letters, so E would be the 5th letter, N would be the 14th letter, G would be the 7th letter, L would be the 12th, I the 9th, S the 19th, H the 8th. You add it up. English is 74. If you write out Gematria, that's the practice of going numbers into words, it's 74. Words like energy are 74. Holidays, 74. Think about this nation's birthday, 7-4. But the name Jesus, the name, or the word cross, the word Messiah, the word gospel, that's the story of Jesus. The word parables, Jesus spoke in parables. All those things add up to 74. Everything pertaining to Jesus is 74. Again, English, Gematria, energy, holiday. There's a song out there, Gematria, the killing name. Killing equals 74. 3 of the first 5 U.S. presidents died on 7-4. Think about that coincidence. Again, we talk about 83 and 74, how they come up all the time in these ritualistic deaths, these deaths that are just so coincidental. When there's songs out there about this, killing the sport of the elite, murder by numbers. The Murder, She Wrote lady who just died at 96. Right after the Queen died at 96. The Murder, She Wrote actress name, her birth name equals 201. We just talked about how important 201 was in the Queen's death. You know? Numbers 201 and 96, they're numbers, for people who are new here, that there's numbers that pertain to certain secret societies. And you'll find number patterns like 201 and 96 in the names of people like Bill Gates. His birth name, William Henry Gates, has a gematria 201 and 96. Again, these are big topics to explain. I don't want to get too far off course, but for the new person here, you learn gematria, you recognize the numbers are a language, and then when studied, you can start to see, this is why they're used this way, by this order, so ritualistically. And 201, huge with the Jesuits. Again, the first Jesuit Pope, not arbitrary, he's the first to live in Suite 201, and his name's Pope Francis, and the Jesuits are from France, and the last French Pope was the 201st. And his birth name equals 201, like the founder of the Jesuits' name equals 201, like the Jesuit order equals 201. So, anyway, just paying extra careful attention to synchronicity. It's like, is that a way the Creator's speaking and saying, you know what, I do prefer that people do not use that name, Jesus. The people who've given us that name, you're right, they are again, people will say confirmation bias. But again, you got to look and assess. You can't just jump to conclusions. I've been studying this subject for 9 years straight. Plus, it's 9 years and 2 months now. We're into the second month. That's a long time to be studying a subject. And again, always learning more like you should be. But yeah, there is something more to synchronicity. And I just thought, what are the odds? What are the odds that you meet a man named Jesus who tells you, who's just so honest, right? Jesus is the great spiritual entity. So with regards to all things being good and bad, you can say, look, he took on those numbers. And again, I don't know the guy, but just from meeting him as a salesperson, I mean, you couldn't be more honest. He's like, don't do this. This is a scam, and don't do this. And I was like, don't you work on a commission? He's like, yeah, but I like to feel good about what I do. And it's like, well, you're awesome, man. I mean, most people are trying to just ring up the bill and get that biggest commission possible. You're saying save a bunch of money here, do this here. Here's how you can do this and save a ton of money. I'm just like, but anyway, and then it turns out again but then he doesn't want to be called that name. I just find it so funny. And then when I tell the rest of this story, which I'm saving for the book, I wasn't even planning on putting in the Jesus story. I'll think about that, but. Yeah, there's just a bigger piece of this too that makes this story more impactful. But I got to save something for the future. I spill the beans on everything every day. So, but yeah, isn't it weird? I'll see what you guys think later in the comments. The man who didn't want to be called Jesus, who was super honest. And then who told the story about his concern with what's going on in school. And I mean, his story should resonate with everybody, right? Well, maybe it shouldn't resonate with everybody. But I'm sure a lot of people do resonate with this story. And it's a story that everybody should think about. I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people. Probably resonates with a lot more than it doesn't. But then there's always a group of people who are like, why is he so worried about that? Why is he worried that there had to be 3 assemblies to announce one child what gender they identify as this week? And here's the one other thing I want to say about that. In light of everything being so focused at this school on this one student, again, this idea of there being Manchurians among us. A gentleman, and I couldn't say a bad thing about this guy because he was a gentle giant, a really nice human being, a great athlete, and he just always blew my mind when I was younger because he was the only person I'd ever seen like this. And then he was from Estonia, and I didn't even know where Estonia was. And his name was Michael Roos. And if you want to look up his name, Michael, like you'd expect to spell it, Roos is R-O-O-S. He was the left tackle for the Titans for a decade, which is the second highest paid position in the NFL. He signed multiple, like $50+ million contracts in his time in the NFL, so made well over $100 million in the NFL. But again, he just used to blow my mind because he was a great athlete, he was huge, and he's from Estonia. Who's from Estonia? But every day he wore khakis and a white button-down t-shirt, just like dressed, just nicely, like professionally every day. Just superstar athlete. And he was a basketball player, but then his senior year, they had him play tight end for the football team, and he ended up getting a football scholarship to Eastern Washington. And then he ended up being the left tackle for the Titans. And again, if people don't follow football, that is a super huge paid position. The quarterback's the most high paid person, and then the left tackle, well, maybe on some days they might pay the right tackle more if the quarterback's left-handed, but most quarterbacks are right-handed. So the reason the left tackle's paid the most is because imagine if you throw the ball, you're pointing forward with your left shoulder, so your blind side's behind you. So the guy who protects the quarterback from that side, he's considered the most important piece because he's protecting the most expensive chess piece, if you will, on the field, who's the quarterback. So they're kind of dependent on each other. And so just so you understand why that position's paid so much. But yeah, you can look up Michael Roos and the contracts he signed. And again, I can never say a bad thing about the guy, but I just look back and I'm like, yeah, he like, where did he come from? Estonia, a huge giant man, really nice person. He was like, he's the creator's perfect creation, right? And maybe he is, maybe he also is. Maybe it's just the organic side and he just happened to be from Estonia. But again, nobody else was from Estonia. I think the furthest person away was from like, not far away, man. So, and then there was one other superstar athlete at that school, a little bit younger than me, and he played. I used to play basketball with him. He was easy to score on, but you couldn't stop him from scoring. And he set the free throw record in the NCAA. And he played at Gonzaga for a whole bunch, and he lit up North Carolina in Madison Square Garden. His name was Derek Ravio. And the thing about him was he was from one of the wealthier families in the community, and his dad was a Los Angeles Laker. And the thing I always thought was weird about his dad is how his dad's basketball career ended. He supposedly dropped a heavy piece of equipment on his leg. I've heard reports of a chainsaw, and I'm just like, how could that happen to you, man? How could that be how your basketball career was ruined? And, you just look at how weird all this stuff is. Just looking at it now, it's like, well, maybe there's more to that story than we know. Maybe he went out and told some hot chicks in LA it was all scripted, sealed the deal. Who knows? But, yeah, anyway, life, it really is stranger than fiction. And, but yeah, it's just, I wish you could have been a fly on the wall yesterday, just so you could see that what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not BSing about how honest this guy was and doing like the exact opposite of what you think any other salesman would ever do. And then just to find out that his name is, spelled the same as Jesus, but then he was impressed that I knew how to say it. It's just it's sad that most Americans don't realize that if you see a Hispanic male whose name is spelled like Jesus, his name's not Jesus. Well, I mean, it could be, but it's more than likely Jesus. Pretty common Hispanic name. So, anyway. Oh, for one more thing that I got to say before I get off here to do the latest chores and errands. Did you guys see what day the coronation day is for King Charles? I mean, did you guys see it? May 6th, 5-6? I mean, come on, man. In the UK, they write it 6-5, which is also worth pointing out. But starting with the 5-6, again, the last king of England died at age 56. Super Bowl 56 foretold the Queen would die this year at age 96. Charles has the Queen's funeral 56 days before his birthday, and now the coronation on May 6th, 5-6. And again, in Gematria, royal family is 56. Very special number to the rulers of this world. Huge number with the Jesuits. And again, you got all the Catholic symbolism on the crown that the Queen wore and that Charles will wear. The fleur-de-lis, Templar-looking crosses. And again, the sun never sets on Britain. That's a military empire that has a lot of history with the Templars of the Catholic Church. And the Jesuits have the Templar cross and their logo's the sun. That phrase, the sun never sets on Britain, the military empire of the world that could sail the seas. The island fortress. I mean, you start to think about it all, you see how it could all come to be and how it likely has come to be, as we've been saying. But Again, where Society of Jesus is 56, Knights Templar is 65, just like United Kingdom is 65. So they write that day 6-5 over there. But again, we've been talking about how huge 56 is with the royal family. And again, my prediction for the Queen to die at age 96 on the 140th day of the year wasn't far off, because instead she died 140 days after her birthday. Queen of England 140. And I thought she might die May 20th. And it wasn't that day, but part of the reason I thought May is because the Led Zeppelin song Stairway to Heaven came out 201 days after her birthday. And we know that's the number who runs this, really, that's the huge Jesuit number. That's like arguably their tippy top number that's directly related to 56. A lot to explain, but it all goes back to the word light in the study of Gematria, and which is knowledge. But again, Stairway to Heaven came out 201 days after her birthday. And there's the lyrics in there. It's just a spring clean for the May Queen. Well, now you're going to have the new Queen coronated in May. So, and again, Queen Elizabeth just died 201 days after being diagnosed with COVID, just like Captain Tom died 201 days after being knighted by her, which was right after the Event 201 coronavirus pandemic simulation, right before the pandemic. And again, none of that's arbitrary. That's what the last book that I wrote, if you haven't read it, I've made it free to download as an ebook. I think everyone must be downloading it because I sell like no ebooks anymore, but which is fine. I hope people are didn't just stop getting it all together. I hope sometimes people don't value things when they're free, but my ebook, it might be free, but it's worth a lot. It's not just like some stupid cheap thing. But if you read that book, you'll learn more about 201 and 56. But the book I'm finishing right now, you'll learn way more about these numbers. It'll be way more comprehensive. And yeah, anyway, we'll leave it there for now. And yeah, let me know what you think about that story about Jesus. And what should all the parents do who are in the same situation right now with their children in school? I mean, really, if I had a child right now, I would feel compelled to do everything in my body if my child was in public school and that was going on, and that's what they're really trying to get in their head for the year. You know, just more thoughts about sexuality. These are really young kids. Grade school? I mean, people, you got to be real, though. I mean, on the internet age, kids know about everything at a really young age. So, I mean, I guess you got to address it, but that's just the focus of the program. If I was a parent right now, I'd be trying to figure out every way in my means of homeschooling, whatever way possible. And what I would be doing right now if there was less red tape is figuring out a way to start a school. So maybe that's the way to start a community. I had that thought when I was driving back from New York. Maybe that's the way to do it. Figure out a way to start a school. It could be small, capacity of 30 children. And it's like, listen, you guys, what I'm looking for is if you're about what I'm trying to do, like get local agriculture and community, and you want to raise your children in a better world, if there's 30 families out there right now who can find a way to get to, you know, it maybe ideally, where I'm moving to, I'll let you know once I move here. Again, it's agricultural town, which can be good and bad. It means there's a lot of pesticides probably around too, so you got to be careful. But again, if this ends up being seemingly a good spot to grow food and be, where exactly is a good spot to be at this day and age? Everything's relative, right? But yeah, maybe that's the way forward. Because if you just start it there with 30, you know, if it takes off, it could grow. And you could show ways to set up the same model in other places. But just imagine learning coming together where it's not just like about gematria and learning how to grow vegetables. That'd be part of it. That could be part of it. But again, it's really about just like learning how to be a good person with critical thinking skills, with good command of, you know, things that are helpful. Again, if you focus a big chunk of the day on learning critical thinking and just getting people to think and solve problems so that they're self-sufficient, I mean, that's what everyone needs. And then if you get basic understanding of math and language so that you are functional, again, so that you can speak to be understood, so that you can write clear enough, you know, you're wise in your decision making. If you made part of the education about understanding the way the financial system aims at us and tries to take advantage of us with debt and wage slavery and all this, so that you don't get beat by this system and you don't make the same mistakes other people did with huge credit card balances and massive interest. You know, if your learning was about that, how to be a well-balanced human being, and also knowledge of, literally how to take care of your body, what is a smart and intelligent way to eat if you want to live a long life and be healthy and have a strong, able body? Because again, we all know that when we fall into sickness, it's the worst times. You feel like you'd rather be dead almost, because it's just like, it hurts, it's painful. Shout out to Jay with Open Eyes, you guys, right now. Again, support Jay with Open Eyes. He's going through a dark time. He's always working hard on his music projects. He never feels supported enough. He feels like he's being suppressed by the algorithm, and he is, because he made the mistake of talking about Gematria. But now he's having this kidney stone thing, which makes me worry because he's a young guy. I guess he said he's been eating a ton of protein bars. Again, processed food, you guys, even if they're protein bars, if you're just eating that all the time, you got to get more fresh stuff in the diet. You got to have refrigerated in this day. And if you could pick it right off the farm, you could just eat it farm fresh. But normally this stuff has to go in the fridge. Some fresh dark greens, some fresh vegetables and produce. That's got to be going through your body on a regular schedule. If you're just eating protein bars, just like it's hard to chew up, imagine your body digesting that. So I think that's what this young man did, because that's what I heard. He's been eating a ton of protein bars. Again, it does have a lot of protein, but it also has a lot of preservatives and just stuff that's harder for your body to break down. That's why it's important to put, again, processed means, you guys, like, when I cut the spinach and put it in the bag, that's not processed, right? You might want to wash off that spinach because of the pesticides and the bag that rubbed off on it. But again, the plant itself is not processed. The plant, Itachi says, yeah, today is the kill date. Yeah, and Comedian does have Gematria like kill. We've seen it so many times. But yeah, you notice the FDA, it's on my blog, you guys. The FDA approved the boosters for ages 5 and up today on the kill date. They probably also did it because not only does kill equal 44, again, all things are dualistic, but remember, Pfizer's 44, Warp Speed's 44, so is military. The vaccine was developed with Operation Warp Speed, a military program. The word medicine itself is 44, so is hospital. It's really interesting looking at that in light of what's been going on. Doesn't mean that everything in the hospital is about killing you, but some of those machines that have the 201 on the side of them that you can only say so much about on this platform before they take you down. It is interesting how that number's on that. But the word children does also have Gematria 44. And again, all things are good and bad. Not all things 44 are bad, but we do know how it's used by the psychopaths in matters of killing and death and war. The Ukraine thing happened right after the Ukraine president turned 44 years old. Again, military 44. If you don't use numerology, military is 107. That's Putin's birthday, 10/7, the day we invaded Afghanistan. When the 2 towers came down 44 days after Tisha B'Av to remember the destruction of the 2 temples. And in Jewish Gematria, Tisha B'Av's 9/11, like the day it happened on. That's led to the big military intervention. Kundalini yoga helps with digestion, says a man who is very fit. So I don't know anything about what he just said, but you might want to look it up because he is a very strong and in shape individual, and I would not want to fight him right now. So whatever he says is worth looking into. But he eats tacos like a champ too. Shout out! Thanks again for your taco money, man. You don't have to do that. You've given a lot of donations like that, and thank you again, Itachi. You've made a lot of donations too. Thank you. But yeah, again, you guys, start eating better today. You know what? Start doing it today, because today might save you the next kidney stone. And again, I got to tell you, Sweet Lady doesn't want me to talk about the things she's doing right now, you guys, but Sweet Lady might be ranked the #1 pharmacist in the history of the world already. I realize now that she's out of school, she feels like she's a boss and she can say things. She was telling people at her work about my opinion on things and why. I can't even say it. Sweet Lady, I'm not just saying that because she's Sweet Lady. But you guys have been so judgmental. But see, I rubbed off on Sweet Lady, and now she has all kinds of knowledge, and she is giving people great advice that could be life-saving. And we'll see how long this lasts, though. And I talked to her about this. I said, you know what you're doing? I said, you could end up getting fired for suggesting these types of things. And she goes, I thought about that. And I said, well, maybe you're realizing what I've been telling you. And she is. She's realizing that there will always be options in standing up for the right thing, because she's been doing her research, and she sees that, this guy has not been wrong about all the things he's been warning about in the time of the pandemic and what was coming with pokey-dokes. And she totally agrees with me, and she's been doing like the scientific medical research and believes it on a whole, not believes it, thinks it and knows it on a whole new level. And she realizes this could be a thing, standing up and campaigning against this as someone who is within the profession. So that could be the future. And wait until I just find life so funny right now with just the numbers that are just falling into place, making me feel like I live in the Twilight Zone. It's just, yeah, Sweet Lady wasn't supposed to go into pharmacy. She always wanted to be a dentist the whole time we were together before she even finished undergraduate school. Again, remember, Sweet Lady was a lot older because she came over from Burma as a refugee. So she was in high school as an older person, and then college as an older person. And, she's a little bit younger than me, but she's old for graduating from school at this time. So anyway, I can go on and on and on. I do have to get to the errands, and I will talk more about all this stuff later, but yeah, just you guys stop being so judgmental. Stop falsely accusing of people of things you can't prove. And if you are falsely accused, instead of being a crybaby about it, just stand up for yourself and say, no, that's not true, and here's why. And come debate me on it if you want to say any more. I've always handled all my business that way. And again, there's always people talking out of their rear end about me, but again, look at the body of work I've laid down in the time I've been here and the value of this work. Again, it's changed a lot of people's lives. And a lot of people just been just straight up haters and just like looking for every reason to hate. And almost all the stuff I get hated on for, it's because I share it with you guys. I'm like an open book. I told you guys when she went into pharmacy and how I was disappointed about it. She doesn't like, because sometimes she'll be in the other room I'm talking about it. She's like, I don't like you saying that stuff to your audience. I'm like, don't worry, they don't even know you. They like this channel because we keep it real here. And her and I talk about this stuff in person too. So it's not like I'm not saying it to her face and then only talking about it on the camera. It's just, we talk about it in person and then I talk about it to the camera too. And even though that stuff's here, for all the people who have trouble staying in relationships, here's what I want to say to you younger people. If you meet a woman that you really like a lot, you love her, you love everything about her, but then after being in the relationship a while, her nagginess and her bitchiness, it just gets too much. And there's all these things you love about her, but you just can't deal with the nagginess and the bitchiness anymore. So you break up and you split up and then you go find another woman and you go through that honeymoon period until the nagginess and the bitchiness comes and then you move on to the next relationship. The reason I bring this up is because there's a lot of guys that are like this, because I used to be like this. That's how I always was. But then I eventually realized one day, I was like, you know what? I realize I've broken a lot of girls' hearts along the way by splitting up because they thought we were just going to be together forever. And, one day I just decided I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm looking for the person that doesn't have to. Well, eventually I realized that this is just like the way women are. So what I'm saying to all you guys who do this is if there is a woman that you just like, again, you really got to weigh the scale. If you start to realize that almost every woman at the end of the day will always have like nagginess and bitchiness and stuff that just makes you want to you read about these stories about the guy who murdered his wife. You might be feeling like that inside because it's like, oh my God, this person. Like women do that to men, man. It's just like, come on, man. I just did all this for you and I'm getting negged at for that. You got to be out of your mind. And I always realize how my mom did this to my dad and my sister did this to her boyfriend. I just realized this part of just women's nature to be this way. Shout out to all the women who aren't this way. I'm sure there's women in the world who aren't this way that I just haven't met yet. So again, if you're like, I'm not this way, I'm okay. I wish I would have met you along the way. But the point I'm making is, the thing is, if you just learn to just deal with women and the nature of them, which is what you have to do if you want to be in a relationship and long term, what's nice is if you stay together over many years, You can watch how a person like transforms and improves. And if you work at it, how the problems in your relationship can get better. And you can watch how over time, your sweet lady might like everything about you, but the things that you question in this world, but over time you might realize that you're really starting to rub off on her in a way bigger way than you realized. And now you rubbed off on her in a good way. And she might end up costing herself a great career and money, but it might actually put her on the righteous path of doing something much more impactful in the world, which might even, end up helping her sustain as well. So anyway, for all you guys out there with the judgments, just stop, look in the mirror, and when it comes to people like me who there's things you like and dislike, instead of just like only commenting or focusing on the negative things, just take the stuff you like and ignore the rest. Or constructive criticism's all right. If you're like, this would have been a lot more effective, or your video would have been a lot better, or I would have been able to share it if you didn't do this, or if you did this instead, that stuff's fine. But when you're like, all you ever talk about is how much you hate Jesus, it's like, okay, when did you even ever watch my video? Like, why are there so many people that just leave comments like that all the time? I know why there are. It's because they learned about me through Russian vids and Richie from Boston and all these other people who I don't even want to talk about them. But again, they just like try to paint a high impact flicks. All the people that just always try to make me look bad. It's just so annoying. It's like, okay, yeah, there's some things that I probably shouldn't have said, and I do go on some rants, but that's not what the majority of my content's ever been about. And I've been pretty fair about almost all things in the time that I have been here. So, okay, I do need to get off. I guess when we just start talking about Jesus or Jesus, just all sorts of things come to mind. And just wait, because the best story of all, I'm saving it for the new book. And don't worry, for all you guys who don't want to pay for the new book, just like always, I've always made my books free for people who don't want to pay for them. So, and that might have been a mistake. Maybe that's also why the sales have been way done. Oh, hey, I got to tell you guys something else. I got to tell you one more thing. I got paid today. Okay, for people who don't know, so to self-publish my book, Number Games, to get that self-published and to get the 2,000 copies of the book and everything, to go through that whole package and everything they do, assembling the book and distributing it with their distributors, that whole thing cost, I forget exact the price. I want to say it was a little bit more than $20,000 at the time to get 2 copies of the book as printed, and everything else that comes with it. So I had to pay for that out of my own pocket, right? And my first 2 paychecks, and you don't get paid for a while after you do it, so you have to be able to like wait 6 months before you get any money back. But the first 2 paychecks, and they come 1 month and then the next month, they were both a little over $10,000, right? So I got paid back about what I put in for the cost, and then every month since then they've just been paying me $200 every month. It's just like, and it's supposed to be based on what my sales are. So I was feeling really good after the first 2 months. I was like, man, that's a lot of sales. Because I think I get like $2 and some cents per book sold. So if I made over $10,000, that means about 5,000 copies of the book sold. And in the first 2 months, so 10,000 copies. I mean, that's not like, ooh, it's not a million book sales, but that's not bad for a self-published author. I mean, in an age where not that many people read. So I was like, oh, this is good. This could be a nice revenue stream. But then every month after that, it just went to $200, $200, $200, $200. And I was like, how can I be selling the same amount of books and be getting paid the same amount every month? So it's been that way forever. Then this month, and it's funny because the guy just called me and told me that he could see that my sales were dipping off. And I don't even know where he looks at the stats at because I don't know where to look at any of this. I thought only BookBaby and the distributors had this information. But they paid me $597 this month in like some cents. And I was like, okay, so all of a sudden out of nowhere, I haven't even been promoting the book or like even mentioning the book in forever, and now I just get more? I'm just like, what? So anyway, I looked in the thing I told you about. I'm going to talk again to that guy today that I told you about yesterday at the end of the stream. How a guy called me and said, he might have a publisher for me. Maybe it's real, but I was looking into it, and based online, there's like hardly any presence of this company, and I'm worried it could be another scam. And it's annoying to think that there's so many scams out there. I can't believe people are scamming self-published authors. Unless I'm just getting targeted because I got so many. Ugh. But I do need to find a publisher for my book. It's too bad. It's too bad we don't live in an age where people read anymore, man. If only we were in the 19th century when books were cool and spoken word, we could have been a big hit. But maybe the 19th century will come back around. So, all right, True Seeker, back to work. Thank you as always for hitting the like and share. And yeah, let me know what you think about that. Isn't that weird that I met a guy named Jesus who didn't want to be called by his name, and it just happened to be my 83rd day of my age, which is the Yeshua number. And again, I was told long ago that that's the name Jesus would like to be called by, Yeshua. And I always wondered how that was true. It does sound a little bit nicer to me, just when I say it, Yeshua. I don't know why. It sounds nicer. And it's similar to Joshua, right? If you look up the name Joshua, it's the English translation of Jesus. And if you're going, but Jesus is an English name, yeah, but look it up. Joshua is the English translation of Jesus. Joshua, just using the alphabetic order, equals 74, like Jesus, like cross, like Messiah, like gospel, like parables. And again, my haters hate this, but again, it's always a misunderstanding because there's people out there, even that there's like some anti-conspiracy site. They have a longer write-up on me than they do on Alex Jones. And on the thing, it says that I claim to be Jesus, which I've never claimed to be Jesus. I only showed the synchronicity in numbers and wondering if, like, somehow if you have these numbers connected to you, since they're numbers associated with Jesus, if somehow that gives you more spiritual energy. And like one of the things I point out is the gospel's 89 chapters. Why is the gospel 89 chapters? Well, I assume it's because the word number equals 89. It's a book of Numbers. The fourth book of the Bible is titled Numbers. It's also the 11th Fibonacci number, and when you use numerology, Jesus is 11. But again, I'm sure a lot of people in this world have the connection in 89 to their name. Again, my dad's name equals 89. Mine does. My mom's birthday is 8/9, which also happens to be the Virgin Mary's birthday. The one thing that might make it a little more interesting for me is, again, if you look up what the coldest day ever recorded is, July 21st, 83. The record temperature, the record coldest day in the history of the world in the time of recordings, negative 89 Celsius. And again, it's funny that there's sayings about when hell freezes over. But again, not saying that I am Jesus. Stop saying this, but these are all true things that I'm saying. It's just funny that the numbers line up like that, right? And then the other weird thing is, my whole life, people have called me Joshua. And I always thought it was the weirdest thing that people have been calling me Joshua my whole life. It happens all the time. Vanessa, who read my whole book, even though she knows my name very well and text messages me and pounded payment with me multiple times. Like the third time she was pounding payment with me, just out of nowhere, she referred to me as Joshua. And she goes, why did I just do that? And she's like, wait a minute, don't you say that people call you Joshua? And I said, I say it all the time because it's been going on my whole life. I used to think when I was a child, my mom should have just called me Joshua. I wouldn't even have to introduce my name because my whole life, people have known me for a while, and then they'll just start calling me Joshua for no reason. They're like, I don't know why I'm doing that. Back when I did real estate appraisals and I was in people's house all the time, I would introduce myself, and then they would be calling me Joshua, and I never introduced myself as Joshua, and then I'll be going, wait a minute, is that your name? That's not what you said your name was. And they're like, I'm sorry, I don't know why I called you that. That's happened to me 1,000 times in my life at least, and it was always so weird to me. And again, I don't think any of this, I've never said that any of this is proof that I'm Jesus, but I just share these things because it's weird how it's connected through this number. And then it's like if numbers become assigned to things, so like to make a point, Oregon, out of the 50 states, Oregon is the 33rd state in order of statehood. And out of the 50 states, only one has a Gematria 74. It's Oregon. And again, we talk about that pairing of 74 and 33. So that's the state I'm born in, right? So it's like, do you somehow get, if these numbers are carrying this special vibration, the Hermetic teachings, and somehow you get born on a date that has a number, in a place that has a number, to parents that have a number, to parents that have this historical connection, Is it somehow that you could become a more charged human being in certain ways? And it could be all sorts of different ways. But maybe these numbers are more towards this thing. And, that's why I always get annoyed with everybody saying that I'm not spiritual, because I've always considered myself a very spiritual person. When I was a young child, I was a huge believer in Jesus, and I prayed super hard every night for everything to improve around me, my family, and everyone else in the world who was going through anything similar. And it was very frustrating for me as a child because it didn't seem like anything ever improved. It seems like it was. Anyway, for like a lot of us, man, a lot of us grow up in tough situations. But yeah, again, I just remember how hard I used to pray when I was a child at night, just that the world would become a better place, that there shouldn't be so much suffering. And yeah, I felt like there was a lot of spiritual energy in me then, and I don't feel like it ever left. It's just like transitioned in the way and I guess what you believe or think what's happening. It was more about beliefs when I was a child. Now it's more, as I've gotten older, more about thought. And could it be this way? How could it possibly be that way? Why would God only make it true for people who could receive this text? What about all the people who lived in times where that text wasn't even possible? Again, but yeah, again, I just think these are like some of the numbers, and it's funny because a lot of people who will decode themselves will say, "Oh, I have this number in connection with you." It's like, so maybe a lot of us have that same number in our own life. Maybe it makes us understand something. We're more privy to understanding numbers. Anyway, all these different things, all these different thoughts, but also so many years of false accusations, and oh, sweet lady's going to become part of the evil empire. I've always acknowledged that that's true, but I've said, don't judge it until the story's over, because sometimes I think you do have to become part of the system to change it. I used to think you could do that in public education, and then I realized that beast is just way too big. And the world of pharmacy, honestly, is even bigger, but maybe different, same type of tactics, but different industry. Maybe somehow it works. You guys, that's what we need. We need a revolution. You know what it is? Here's what I got to close off with. 1998. We're going back to 1998. Tupac's been dead for 2 years, and the new hit song on the radio, it's Tupac anyway, it's Changes. And again, what's he talking about on the song? Same things you've heard in other places too, but we got to change the way we eat. We got to change the way we live. We got to change the way we treat each other. I mean, if we just did those 3 things right there, we could change the world. But there has to be a willingness to do it. If we all start eating the right way, there is a right way to eat. We didn't learn this in America. We never learned there was a right and a wrong way to eat. What do you mean? It's freedom to eat around the clock and have ice cream at midnight, and a root beer float and a Twinkie. But I just realized there's a fly in here with me. Here, hold on. Let me see if he can get out. He wants to stay in there. Did he fly back in? I guess he likes it better in here. He did. He flew to the other side. I guess it's warmer in here. But, oh yeah, the three things we got to change. The 3 things we got to change. We got to change the way we eat. Again, the right way to eat, you guys, the right way to eat. It is. It is this intermittent fasting way. That's the way we're supposed to eat. We're not supposed to be eating all around. We're not supposed to be grazing like cows all day, like we're trying to get big and fat for the slaughterhouse. That's metaphorically what we do for Big Pharma. We get big, fat, and full of disease and illness for Big Pharma, who comes in with all the big everything else to suck a whole bunch of your financial wealth out of you, which is essentially your power and resource in this world. Shouldn't be that way, but that's what it's become in this world, right? Money's the thing that takes care of all things. But I just realized the police cruiser was rolling by. So this community we moved to, again, where I live, Yakima, Sunnyside, Grandview, all this stuff, it has huge crime problems. Again, you stay out of a certain neighborhood, you're mostly okay, but a lot of crime in this area. So they say this is the safe community to be in, the one that Sweet Lady would like to, that we're moving to. But I keep telling her, I say, the crime isn't that far away. So, I mean, you can move to the safer area, but that doesn't necessarily mean it can be that much safer. It's just a few miles down the street. So, but I noticed the cops rolling by. It's like, well, maybe that is why they're safer. Maybe they're real attentive about things here. Just checking everything out. But, okay. Change the way we eat, you guys. Again, seriously, if you look down and there's more on your stomach than should be there, which is the case for most Americans, if you look down and that's the case, you can get rid of a lot of that by just changing the time slot you eat in. And you might not be able to do it overnight if you're used to eating around the clock every day. If that's what your body's used to, it's going to be hard to break away from that. So you got to do it little by little. But again, everybody's goal should be to eat in an 8-hour window. And if you can do less than that, it can be even better. If you can do it in a 6-hour window or 7, that's even better. But it can be difficult to get down to 8. And again, you have to look at what that is. If your first meal of the day is at 9 in the morning, your last meal, you're done eating at 5 p.m. You're not starting your last meal at 5, you're done eating by 5. So if you start eating at 9, you're done eating at 5. If you need to eat later in the day than that, you could eat your first meal at noon. Maybe you can wait till noon to eat, and then your last meal's at 8. But it'd be better to do it earlier because you probably go to bed. Most people go to bed between like 10 and 11 if they work the next day. Some people stay up later, but it's good to eat your last meal about 4 hours before you go to bed too, for maximum digestion, and it keeps from less fat piling up on your body too. But again, just by eating, if you can get down to the 16-hour time slot, your body will burn a lot of extra fat because I never knew the word for it, but that's what the word is, autophagy. Your body starts eating the extra. It'll first eat like cancers in your body, disease and illness, and then it'll start eating your extra fat. And that's how your system sustains. It's like recycling the bad into something new that keeps you going today. And again, I mean, if all of us are healthy, think about it, you guys. Our government's able to get up in front of us and say things like, we need to put all this money into healthcare. And then people just nod their head along to it because they know a lot of people have health problems. Okay, there's a lot of people with health problems, so our government has to take care of us. So yeah, we'll agree to X amount of more $1 trillion for the health care. Yeah, okay. Because they look around and they know everybody's unhealthy. They're probably unhealthy. And they're thinking someday I'm going to need that care because I'm not going to be able to afford my own bills. It's kind of like a lot of Americans' mindset. God, I know healthcare is expensive. I'm glad our government will, take care of a lot of these bills. And again, I think that's also why the medical system, I think, you get in the state nursing home, there's a lot more morphine in grandma and grandpa's daily medicine intake. And next thing you know, they're dead. And it's all just, and nobody's to blame because the nurse is only doing exactly what she's told. And that comes down from the authorities. She's just following the latest government medical information protocol, RIP grandma. And, but again, when they're dead, that all of a sudden saves a whole bunch of money. I mean, if you are a government, even though it is all a big Ponzi scheme, they still do have books at the end of the day and accountants, and, they got to keep things within the ballpark. So, if all of a sudden grandma, who was on her way to 90, she falls short at 85 because the morphine drip was just, But yeah, again, if we take care of ourselves, we're not looking for the government to pay our healthcare bills. We're like, you know what? I know how to be healthy. I know how to be healthy. I know how to eat. I know how much rest to get. You know what? Now that I'm not paying so much to the government, I don't spend my whole year working. I actually get to spend time with my family. And now my wife can even homeschool. Or I'm dad and I can homeschool. My wife, she goes to work and is actually a good pharmacist. Sweet ladies aren't talking about that. For all you guys, some of you guys also say that, oh, Zach just let sweet lady. My mom says this about me too. But my mom is just, sweet lady and I actually have a really balanced life. But I'm always telling you about when I can't do this because sweet lady's not cool with that. To me, that's the balance. She lets me do a lot, you guys. She lets me spend so much of my time doing this. And, there's so many nights out we could have gone and done something where I'm like, I really have to cover this. And she was disappointed, but she let me do it. I mean, there's a balance, okay? But at the end of the day, there's some things where it's like, I got to let her have her way. Everything can't just be my way. That's not a relationship. And if she's not comfortable with it or it makes her so afraid, I got to be there as the man to help alleviate that stress and fear. Anyway, there's a balance. So again, we got to change the way we treat each other. Coming back to that thing about women and bitchiness and stuff. Women, but just part of their nature is because of their cycles and their hormones. Sometimes just that thing comes out that's just like, oh my God. But if you can just realize, like, okay, when that happens, I'm just gonna be like, you just find a way to cope. But what you don't want to do is fight back and argue and scream and yell. For all the families that argue and scream, I guarantee you that's how it starts. When the man starts going back at the woman the way she's coming at the man. So you can't ever be that way. For all the dudes who fight with their women, stop fighting with your woman. Sometimes you have to lay down the law and say, sometimes I have to lay down the law with sweet lady, and I realize she's, she'll stop. And I hate when that has to happen, but occasionally, in all the years we've been together, there's probably been like 4 times or something like where I just felt like I had to put down my foot, and I realized that made her back up and check herself. And I only did that because I knew I was in the right and she was tripping. I'm fair about things. But again, if you can just accept the way a lot of women are. Again, I don't want to say all women are this way, but they have this thing that comes out that's just like, oh my God, and it makes you want to just move on to the next relationship right there. I've had enough of this. But again, I just realized now from being in the relationship for so long, I'd never been in a relationship anywhere near this long. Before Sweet Lady, the longest I'd ever been with somebody was about 2.5, 3 years. And just from being together so long, though, it's just fun to see the journey, the growth, and just like overcoming problems and getting more on the same page and becoming better teammates. And so for all the guys out there who got a really good girl who drives them super nuts sometimes and they feel like leaving them or cheating with that other cute girl that was flirting with you, and that's the way it happens all the time, right? People are in the workplace. There is somebody who flirts with them. They've been behaved, but now they're mad about this, and now they feel like they're going to go get revenge this way or something. That's what people are doing in their relationships. If you guys can stop doing all that and just coexist. I used to think monogamy couldn't possibly be right. And I'm still not sure. I'm not saying it is for sure. But I just realized that, I mean, if people really can stay together and loyal and work as a team and try to overcome their problems, people can become something powerful. And it might be worth trying. But yeah, because again, if you think you're going to find the next woman that doesn't have that problem that you're I mean, some people are better than others, but just realize like women have periods where it's just like, and they do call it a period, right? But they have periods of time where it's just like, oh my God, man, can somebody shoot me? So I can't tell you the days where I've gone out a Sweet Lady's way, and it only happens sometimes. I just gone so far out of the way and done all this thing and kept Sweet Lady all nice one day and then just made like one little mistake and just got the like hardest lecture like I was the most incompetent dumbass there ever was. And it's just like, oh my God, man, like after everything I did. But then I know what I've learned is if I don't say anything back and I don't react, she'll usually apologize to me 20 or 30 minutes later. She'll usually check herself. So, again, change the way we eat, change the way we treat each other. Imagine if everybody was looking out for everybody. It's hard to in this world because people are so dangerous. That's the thing, man. I mean, I've helped out some people in the world where it ended up being a problem because, like, wait a minute, this person just thinks like I'm a endless ATM who can, and now the minute I can't come help out, I'm getting chewed out by this person after all I did for them. I mean, I've had these just, again, it's really good and important to help people and do kind things for others, but some people are impossible. And yeah, that's why sometimes I think we do need the Great Reset, because it's just like it has. When I was younger, I still help out a lot of people, but I used to help out a lot more people when I was younger than I do now, just from what I would say lessons learned, unfortunately. But that's why we got to change the way we treat each other. When people are good to you, you should be good back to them. And then the time that they can't help out, you should be understanding, not like, oh my God, what, you can't do it for me. It's like, whoa, man, I just helped you out the last 12 times. Today I got something that's up, man. I can't afford that this time. And it's like, oh, so all I was here for you was to help you until the day you couldn't help you, and now I'm just not okay. That stuff needs to change. There's people in this world that are that way. Okay, we need to change the way we eat. We need to change the way we treat each other. What was the third thing he said? I forget the third thing right now. Well, even if we just did those two. So, oh, and by the way, I learned something else. I've been watching a lot of videos in the background while I've been working on autophagy, just trying to understand this subject more and more. So I learned something about why veganism and vegetarianism can be healthier, like I've said all these years, in terms of fighting disease and illness. There's actually real science behind it. I never had the real science before because I didn't know this simple thing about autophagy. And this makes perfect sense. Okay, so look into autophagy. Again, it's 100% real. It's backed up. It's researched. It's the same thing people have been observing for all this time, but they didn't have this word for it until recently. This is the same kind of information I was reading about back in the day without knowing the word autophagy. It's proven all over the world that people who eat a higher percentage of plants in their diet, especially dark green vegetables, they have lower rates of cancer and disease and illness. So here's why it is. This autophagy process, it happens in your body no matter what. Even if you are eating ice cream at midnight and, just even if you're abusing your body, there's still some autophagy happening in your body. It just has to happen for you to exist. When you have dead cells in your body, they are created into new cells. And the thing is, people who eat a really bad diet, what happens is they have the absolute minimal level of autophagy in their body. People who eat a really healthy diet and who eat in an 8-hour window or less, they have a lot more autophagy in their body, so it's fighting a lot more against disease and illness. So here's what happens when you have less meat and dairy and protein and eggs in your diet. And I've read before that too much protein can be very bad. So protein is also stopping autophagy from happening. So the thing is, the autophagy process is largely protein-based. But if you have a lot of protein in your body from your diet, the autophagy, it doesn't have to eat your own dead cells and disease and all the stuff you'd want your body to be eating up. It doesn't need to do that to get the protein for the process to happen because there's already so much protein in your diet. So that's why if you're eating, just start watching videos on autophagy. Don't type in vegetarianism or veganism or diet. Just start watching videos on autophagy. You'll see how the subject comes up because multiple people will point out the same thing. They'll point out how when people eat a vegan diet, because there's not as much protein in it, the body has to go to all that bad stuff. And there is a lot of bad stuff in our bodies, you guys, because there's so many toxins in the world. We have so many toxins going in because of what's in the food, the air, the water, everything. The plastic bags on the food, the surfaces. Again, we used to live in nature, right? Now we don't live in nature. Now we live in products, right? We have carpet made out of these fibers that puts little stuff in the air. We got countertops and just everything, right? We don't live in an organic world. We live in a man-made world. And a lot of chemicals around us and just particles that they get breathed in that are so small, but they become part of us. So if you have a body that's doing a lot of autophagy, it's destroying the majority of this stuff. It's eating it up to generate the protein you need for your body. If you already have a lot of protein in your body, all things good and bad, that's how you also, there is a bodybuilder in this community, David Tanks, who's completely vegan and massive. He looks like he is a professional bodybuilder and he's vegan. I'm sure he gets a lot of soy protein in his diet, but and not an effeminate guy either. But anyway, this is where the science is of why people who are eating plant-based diets are having less things like cancer and disease and illness because they have so much autophagy in their body. And realize, you guys, for all of you guys who have the idea that if you eat plants, you'll be a wimp, go drive past the cow field because you're eating steaks and burgers, right? What are they eating? They're eating grass. So again, a lot of, and of course, these cows are, the reason cows have been chosen for the food source that they are is because of the way they are, right? That they're simple animals, they're easy to raise, they eat grass, and they become big, massive things full of food, right? The way we look at it. That's why the poor cow gets slaughtered at a rate like no other outside of the chicken and the pig. If you haven't read the book Animal Farm, I don't think... If you guys haven't read George Orwell's Animal Farm, you should read that. It's a short book. It's very fitting for the times. And you should read 1984 as well. And I got to still read Burmese Days. I just started to read the opening pages and was blown away by the fact the first number on there is 56. Like Burma campaign's 56. Again, like Captain Tom dead one day after Burma's government fell, who's known for the Burma campaign, and dead 56 days after the first person in the world got the pokey doke. Maggie Keenan, whose name equals 56, like coronavirus, like COVID vaccine. Like Society of Jesus, like Royal Family, like the Ritual with the Queen. And now the coronation on May 6th. Okay, but I do need to get off. It's just, yeah, I guess a lot of thoughts on my mind because I haven't been doing as many streams. So, anyhow, somebody might have just gave a super chat too. Oh, it's my man with the taco money. 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Okay. Appreciate that. I'll have to look up more about that information. It's been a while since I studied nutrition like that, like what you really should be doing. You know, I just developed a diet lifestyle a long time ago, and I always try to stay as close to that as possible. Sweet lady, she feels that we need meat. Well, she feels that she needs meat in her diet, and she likes to eat the same thing together, so I've been kind of going against the way that I like to be and eat. We don't eat a lot of meat, but we have a little meat here and there. It's usually some fish, and sometimes she wants chicken. Very rarely she'll want a piece of beef. And you know what it's made me do though in the time we've been eating this way? It makes me pray before I eat. And when I pray, I don't put my hands together and do all that like they taught us. I just say something nice in my head. Thank you for the food, for this sacrifice. And I usually also in my prayers, it's like, say, give me a sign if this is wrong. Should I be doing this? Because I feel kind of wrong about doing this, but Sweet Lady usually leads me in the right direction, even when I disagree with her. That's the thing, too, I've noticed about Sweet Lady. Sometimes the things that she does want from me, even though it bothers me a little bit, I see her point of view, and then oftentimes as I go along with what she said, I'm like, you know what? She ended up having the right call on this. So, anyway. Change the way we eat, change the way we treat each other. Oh, yeah, change the way we live. That's the other thing he says. Change the way we live, which is really all those things, right? And a lot more. A lot more. You guys exercise? We got the exercise balls back here today, by the way. If you guys don't have exercise balls like this, they're a good thing to have in your house because what's nice about these, like, is if you do push-ups in your house, if you just get one of these exercise balls, and you can get smaller ones too. It's hard to tell exactly what size is on camera, but this smaller size is more useful. And if you're a small person, you can get an even smaller one. But the nice thing about having those is when you do like your push-ups, like if you put your feet up on that and you balance yourself and do push-ups, what's nice about doing it that way is you work a little bit different muscles, but you also work your core because your other muscles in your core area are having to like balance, and so you're using other things. And if you have just like some simple dumbbells, like if you can like lay back on that and like do like a bench press, or you can just do like some simple. And I've learned as I get older, don't do a lot of weight, just do a whole lot of reps. Because what if you guys here, I'll tell you one more thing before I get off. Again, for people who don't know, part of how I got on this journey was injuring myself. I injured myself right before my 30th birthday. Right before my 30th birthday. I don't know what happened here. Anyway, right before my 30th birthday, make sure the phone... Oh, I bet the phone's about to overheat. This phone might... If the stream cuts off, it's because the phone overheated. But right before my 30th birthday, I blew out my shoulder real bad. And part of what it was is probably... I was... My buddy who I worked out with in the gym back then, I used to be a lot stronger back then because I worked out all the time, but my buddy was bigger than me, just bigger frame, taller guy, and he was always pushing me really hard, which was good because he got me to... he got me. We got a phone call real quick. He got me to a point where that I never thought I'd get to in terms of strength and how much I could bench. Here, you guys, I've never weighed more than 175 pounds. I probably weighed about 175 back then, but mostly strong and muscle. And to give you a thing right now, after getting on this like hardly any carbs, eating in an 8-hour window, I have not been able to weigh more than 150 pounds. I'm sure if I got on protein shakes and worked out harder, I could build on more muscle and maybe get up to like 160, but I bet I couldn't get up to 175 eating in this window and not having things like bread in my diet, way less carbs. But, oh, shoot. I was talking about food and nutrition. What was the point, though, I wanted to make for you about with the food and nutrition? I need to rewind my conversation. Can't get my weight up. I lost my train of thought. Shoot. I saw the super chat. I want to say thank you, and it slipped out. Thank you, Sarah. Shoot. She said check all your super chats. Were there more? Chase gave me $2 and said, blessings, brother. I appreciate that. Okay, there were some other super chats I missed. Sorry, you guys. I had something in there I needed to say, and then I forgot it because I was trying to read the super chat. Food and nutrition. Change the way we live. Okay, I said a lot, though, in this stream. But yeah, seriously, guys, shout out to Jay with open eyes. I'm sorry you're in so much pain. He's going through this kidney stone thing, and he's saying he's got to take these painkillers that got him feeling super addicted, but he can't deal without the pain without them. If anybody has any good kidney stone remedies, who's lived through it, who wants to go with Jay with open eyes, I believe it's 4 at the end of the channel. He's been censored a few times. I think it's Jay Witt. Leave the H off. Jay Witt Open Eyes. Jay. That's his name. Jay Witt Open Eyes. Somebody wants to go to his channel and let him know what to do about his kidney stones. I heard putting apple cider vinegar in your water. You don't want to drink too much apple cider vinegar, but just getting some in there can help break it up. But if anybody has a good remedy for him, he says he's just in terrible pain. You know, I did watch the beginning of his video yesterday, and he said when he was in the hospital recently, he couldn't control himself, and he had to keep flailing to the floor and, like, screaming out because it hurt so bad. And he said that the people at the hospital had to tell him to be quiet because he was scaring everybody, and he didn't like that because he was in terrible pain, and he's not trying to do it to put on a show. It's just that's the way he's coping with the pain. And I identify with that because I still don't know when I came back from, I went hard that week in Buffalo too. I hardly slept at all. And when I came back from Buffalo, it was right after I got off the plane, you know, getting back into town, right after I got off the plane. I'm glad it didn't happen on the plane, but I mean, it was like right after I got off the plane, this pain started to come on in my body, and it was like no other. And I was doing the same thing. My mom picked me up at the airport, and I was back at her house, and I was like flailing on the ground and making noise. And she was like, Jesus, are you dying? Do you need to go to the emergency room? And, but yeah, it was bad. And I still don't know exactly what happened to me, but God, it was just, it hurt like a mother. So I don't know but man, Jay says he's been dealing with that for like a week now. So I had to deal with it for hours. I remember I was in so much pain, though, at one point it was easy to fall asleep for a second, but then I woke right back up because I was in pain. But yeah, that was weird too, how when I got back from Buffalo that happened. So hearing Jay's story just made me think of the same thing. And this fly really doesn't want to get out of here. Okay. But yeah, Jay, if you're out there, man, be strong. Try not to use those painkillers. Because he says they just making him feel like more and more of an addict. It's just sad that's the world we live in, man. Because so many people are in pain and suffering. And you know what? I'm sure Jay would be eating a different diet if food was more affordable. I used to, well, again, like I said, even if you can afford ramen noodles, if that's all you can afford is ramen noodles, and that's your diet for a lot of your life, eating ramen noodles right now, that's how I was in college. Put some damn vegetables in that ramen noodles. You know what's cheap as well? Cilantro or parsley, if you prefer one to the other. You know, rinse it off, chop it up a little bit, throw it in your soup. Cilantro or parsley right in your ramen. You just made it way healthier than it was because now you put something in your body with it that's actually good cleaning out toxins. So as toxic as ramen is, it does fill you up if you're hungry. Trust me, I grew up in a family where I grew up in ramen. I said in college I ate ramen. Well, I forgot to mention we grew up on ramen. In our house, there was ramen noodles, Ritz crackers, and salami. And I thought salami was the fanciest thing in the world. And anyway, we grew up in Poor Town. But yeah, cilantro, cheap, but also very good for the body. And or parsley, either one. They both have the cleansing properties. If you want to put some more vegetables in it, you like some frozen broccoli, cauliflower, some peas, I don't know, whatever vegetables you like. I'm not convinced that eggs are bad for you. There's a lot of negativity against eggs, but I think eggs are actually a pretty good food source. No carbs, a lot of protein, a lot of enzymes, minerals. I'm not sure that eggs are bad. So you can put an egg in your soup, not too expensive. The cost of eggs has gone way up. Cost of eggs, it's funny, the news was reporting how much the cost of eggs were up for a long time, and I didn't see the prices really change at all out here. But then all of a sudden, the price just like went way up overnight. Like months later after they were reporting on this, I was like, well, maybe it happened in other places of the country before it happened out here on the West Coast. Eggs, they're still pretty cheap, though. I mean, if you break down the cost, like a carton of cage-free eggs, between $4 and $6. I mean, the cost per egg, that's still pretty low for all the protein and nutrients and food you get in it. I mean, 30 to 40 cents, not a bad deal in terms of what other things cost. And that's now that they're way more expensive. But again, even if you're eating ramen noodles, you can make that a healthy meal. Put an egg in there. Put some cilantro in there. And you know how when the soup comes out, it's too hot to eat anyway? Perfect thing that I would do is just throw in some frozen vegetables. So if you're going to put a ton in it, it might make it too cold. But depending on how much broth's in there, throw in some frozen veggies, leave them in for a second. Then the veggies are perfect. The soup cooled down a little bit. Your soup's ready to eat. It's healthier. You don't have to sit there and blow on it and burn your tongue. Anyway, learn how to be smart about how you eat. And learn how to be efficient and learn how to be healthy. It makes a big difference, you guys. You know. Shout out to Adam Francisco, too. He came on here, and he was a good sport. I had to stop watching his YouTube channel because he's making me pull my hair out. But he's about the same age as I am, and he just lost both his kidneys. And you know what? He thought, going to the gym every day, taking care of the body, having the big swole muscles, he thought that was all he needed to do. He didn't realize he needed to maintain the engine inside. And a lot of Americans got that mindset. So hopefully that man gets some kidneys and starts taking better care of the insides as well. And again, for all you young people, that's the reason to take care of yourself now, because before you know it, you're going to be my age. And if you don't take care of yourself, you can already have a bunch of health problems by the time you are my age. Or you can take care of yourself and feel just about the same you do body-wise as you did when you're your age right now. And I can honestly say that. I mean, I'm not as strong and as spry as I was when I was, 17, 18, 19, 20, early 20s. But I probably could be as strong or stronger if I spent more time in the gym. It's just I don't do that as much. But again, I'm not far off is the point. I still am in very good health. And if I spent more time in the gym right now, maybe I could even be in better health. So I used to think when I was that age, by the time I was about 40, it'd be game over. But I realized that's not true at all. If you take care of yourself when you're 40 years old, it's not that bad. I'm not quite 40, but I'm on my way. My next birthday is 40. So, well, unless you start your time of birth from conception, because then I bet you I'm real close to 40 years old. Because I know I was conceived in October, so I'm in my conception month. But, all right, that's it. I keep going on and on. I just don't want to say goodbye to you guys. So I do got to go do some things. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And I hope you start eating better today. Less sugary drinks, less snacks. Work on eating in that 8-hour window. Slim down the midsection. You can do it just by eating in the 8-hour window. You don't even have to stop. You don't even have to eat less food. You just got to eat it in a smaller time frame. If you are overeating, though, you should stop doing that, too. You're just wasting your money and putting more wear and tear on your body. Think about it that way. I've thought about food that way for a long time. When you put this food in your body, what does it do when it goes inside? Does it nourish the body or does it age? Again, certain foods age you, right? Potato chips, they taste great, but besides the great taste, they're the kind of food that when it goes in, it ages you a bit. It makes your system work harder, but doesn't really bring a whole lot in. If you were starving to death, that's different because then there'd be some nutrients in it that helps you maintain. But for the most part, when you're eating potato chips, you're not eating potato chips as the way to stay alive. So, again, you guys, if you got way too much sugar in your diet, stop it. Sugar is the biggest fuel of disease and illness and cancer. Your coffee this morning, if you got whipped cream on it and sugar and packets of stuff and this flavoring, what is that flavoring really? What chemicals are in that flavoring? It tastes good, but is it good for you when it goes in? Think about that too. Plain coffee, plain tea, it might not taste as good, but it's actually healthy. If the coffee's going in plain, if the tea's going in plain, that actually has some medicinal benefits, and they're not being outweighed by that big sugar chemical mixture you put in your body. So, yeah, again, I think I'm going to try to talk about food and nutrition in every video I do from now too. It's more pressing for most of us than Gematria, isn't it? I mean, it's important to understand what's going on and have the knowledge to see through the people who manipulate us day after day. Biden's whole thing on the nukes yesterday on the nuclear date numerology, just seeing through the whole show. But we really do got to take better care of ourselves. I mean, I feel so compelled to create a revolution in children of just like body. Like it has to happen right now. Just seeing all these fat kids in this little town, it depresses me, man. It's all over the nation, but even this, I would think small town America for some reason would be better because they got agriculture here. They made us. That's you guys. That's what they did. They made us addicts at a young age. We were all watching the same cartoons. What the most dangerous advertising in all of television is the breaks between cartoons. I mean, look at the stuff being marketed to the kids. Sugar, junk food, crap toy, violent video game. I mean, I played them too. You can play the video games and have fun and not grow up to be a psychopath. But I don't think even all these violent video games, all this violence everywhere being in our consciousness, I think it's been my same theory for a long time. I think us just being so used to violence and violence is entertainment. I think what it does is it makes us so, we kind of shrug our shoulders when we hear that we have a violent government military regime, bombing some people over there to keep us safe. We're like, well, it's violence, man. We're used to violence. It's kind of cool anyway. So, Mortal Kombat, man, that was the big debate when I was a kid. Should Mortal Kombat be taken out of the arcades? Should this be sold on video game systems in the home? They're literally ripping off people's heads. It's funny to think. Yeah, I'm thinking back to those days, playing Mortal Kombat with the friends, not having a clue about the New World Order. Woo, man. Okay, you guys, I do got to sign this off. Have a great rest of your day, and until next time.